Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Today we have back with us Professor Sreejit Datta, and today we are going to discuss the contributions of Bengalis, famous Bengalis, legendary Bengalis in fact, who contributed to Indian nationalism. Today we are going to discuss four specific people: Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Debendranath Thakur, Ramakrishna Dev, and Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. So, Professor, why specifically these four people?
Yes, first of all, thank you so much, Neerajon, for having me back on your podcast. The reason why I think these four are important is um, the more I research into the roots of India's nationalist movement and the phenomenon that we know as Bengal Renaissance or Indian Renaissance. Uh, the stronger my conviction gets that without understanding Raja Ram Mohan, Maharshi Debendranath, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, and Sri Ramakrishna Dev, uh, we won't be able to get to the missing links of our nationalist freedom movement's history. I'm talking about nationalist freedom movement, not in the political sense. This is something that we have to keep in mind. Whenever we are talking about, at least in the context of our discussion today, regarding nationalist freedom movement, we have to always keep in mind that it is at the same time political as well as cultural emancipation. So, I'm going to take the line of what the philosopher K.C. Bhattacharya had called Swaraj, not only in political sense, but also in cultural sense, in the sphere of freedom of thought. So, uh, the more I read into it, the more I make my researches go deeper and deeper into the roots of our nationalist freedom movement, seen from both these fronts, political as well as cultural, my conviction gets stronger. Just to reiterate, that we have to understand Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Maharshi Debendranath Tagore, Bankim Chandra, and Sri Ramakrishna Dev, their life and their works, and the impact that their work had on many generations that had intersection with their own lives and which went beyond their own lives. So this is why I think we should discuss these four personalities at the very outset.
So, who do we start with?
I think we can start with Maharshi Debendranath because in the previous podcast we had some discussions about Raja Ram Mohan Rai. Of course, we'll come back to him, but I think we can start with Maharshi Debendranath.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
the most fascinating thing. I had absolutely no idea of his contributions to Indian nationalism and even apparently Hindu pride even.
Okay, so maybe let me start by asking you a question for a change. So, can you give me a brief idea about what sort of general idea you think people have about Maharshi Debendranath's role in Bengali culture or Indian culture as a whole? What was your perception?
Wrote some good columns here and there. That's all.
Okay, so were you aware that he was the person who had basically brought in and also popularized the term Brahmo Dharma?
No.
Okay, so I think probably we can start with this aspect. Many people have this misleading notion that it was Raja Ram Mohan Rai who started calling this new reformed Hinduism Brahmo Dharma. That is not the case. So basically, from the trust deed of the Brahmo Samaj that Raja Ram Mohan Roy had established, that he had founded in 1828, the English year 1828. From that trust deed, we get to see that the name of this organization that he had founded was Brahmo Samaj. Many people actually think that it was Brahmo Sabha or even Brahmo Sabha, but that is not the case. It is unequivocally clear about this, and also it has been corroborated by the testimonials of Ramchandra Vidyabhagish, who was in fact the first acharya, of the Brahmo Samaj. That the organization that the Raja had founded back in 1828, making a trust deed for that foundation was indeed named Brahmo Samaj. But at the same time, and this is very important, the religion that will be propounded from that particular organization called Brahmo Samaj, the trust deed mentions this in very clear terms, would be known as Vedanto Protipadito Shotto Dharmo. I'll repeat this: Vedanto Protipadito Shotto Dharmo, or maybe we can call it in a little Sanskritized pronunciation, Vedanta Pratipadita Satya Dharma, which
Sir,
can be translated literally into
I
English.
have
Yes,
to
please.
interrupt you once. Is your mic in the headphone itself?
Yes.
Okay. It's I guess moving around a little, which is why there's a lot of noise,
Okay. Uh, Let me then try
as
without it.
if you are on a sea beach. That sort of a noise.
Okay, or maybe that's because of the fan. Let me try this without the mic
Okay.
on the headphone.
Okay.
Hello.
No, it's still same. In fact,
Still the
exactly
same?
same.
Okay.
Uh,
So
do you have a webcam?
yes, I do.
Is the webcam vibrating for some reason? Like is the entire platform moving around?
Might be. Yes, maybe that is the case also.
Okay.
Is it better when I'm speaking? Is it better?
No, something seems to be going on moving around.
Okay. I think it's because of the fan, the ceiling fan.
Okay. Okay, go on. Go on. It's almost 80%, no problem only. Then go on. If it's not
Okay.
fixable,
Please
no
stop me
problem.
if you think that the noise is too much.
Okay.
Is it?
It's not too much. Just a little distracting.
Okay. So what do I do? Should I
Yeah,
go
yeah, go on,
without
go
the?
on. Without or with the headphone, it's the same anyway. So go on,
Okay.
whatever you are comfortable with.
Sure. So I was talking about the name of
Hmm.
the religion that Raja Ram Mohan Roy's Brahmo Samaj, which he founded in 1828, the year 1828, was not known as Brahmo Dharma. Rather, it was called Vedanta Pratipadita Satya Dharma,
Hmm.
which can literally translate into English as the true religion as propounded in the or by the Vedanta. Okay, so having this been the case, we get to see a change at the time of Maharshi Debendranath joining the Brahmo Samaj. We have to remember that within just 2 years of founding the Brahmo Samaj organization, the Raja had left for England, and he passed away in England also in 1833. So within just 5 years of founding the Brahmo Samaj, the Raja had passed away. That too in faraway Bristol,
Right.
England, and therefore there was hardly any leadership,
Hmm.
either religious or organizational leadership,
Hmm.
back in Calcutta at that time,
Hmm.
which would replace
Hmm.
Raja Ram Mohan Roy with his charisma, with his knowledge, and with his organizational skills.
Hmm.
So, for a long time, almost for a decade, the Brahmo Samaj was in a very precarious situation, and this fledgling organization was held together only by the efforts of some of the good friends of the Raja, such as Ramchandra Vidyabagish, who I mentioned already, who was the first Acharya of the Brahmo Samaj, and also Prince Dwarkanath Tagore, father of Maharshi Debendranath and grandfather of Rabindranath, the poet. So, because of the financial backing of Prince Dwarkanath Tagore and the religious fervor of Ramchandra Vidyabagish, who, by the way, was also the brother of Hariharananda Tirtha Swami, the guru of Raja Ram Mohan Rai. Because of these two people, for those 10 years, almost 10 years, the Brahmo Samaj remained floating.
Hmm.
Okay, it did not simply go away or melt away. So after this, around 1842, beginning of the 1840s, that decade, we get to see that the Tattva Bodhini Sabha,
Hmm.
which was founded by Debendranath. Back then, he was not known as Maharshi. He would become Maharshi quite a few years later. Uh, Tattva Bodhini Sabha had created a good organization around it, and it had managed to attract a lot of talented young people, such as Akhay Kumar Dotto, who was a very talented writer and also orator. Um, and as a result, the Tattva Bodhini Sabha's mouthpiece, which was simply known as the Tattva Bodhini Patrika or Tattva Bodhini Putrika in Bengali, uh, was publishing a lot of thoughtful, insightful articles on religious and social issues. Many of these were coming from Akhay Kumar Datta himself, and Maharshi Debendranath was quite actively involved in the editing and publishing. And slowly we get to see that there emerges lot of synergies between the Tattva Bodhini Sabha and the Brahmo Samaj.
Sir,
Okay?
I have to interrupt you once again for one
Yes.
question and to ask you: is there any way that you have AC in this room? Is there any way to
No,
turn off
I
the
don't.
fan?
I know, I don't.
Okay.
So, but I'll try it. You
And
know.
that webcam moving around thing is a little more of a problem because fan was on anyway last day, but this other noise was not there last day. Something
Okay.
else is going on with the webcam moving around.
Not very sure. Let me just check once again.
Sort of a
So,
windy noise, not continuous. Sometimes.
okay. Let me just try it. With the ceiling fan. Give me a second.
Okay. And what's wrong with my mic? Guys, let me know when my volume becomes okay. All right. Hello. Hi Abhay, I'm reading your answer. 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 Yeah, I'm reading your question. So Abhay is asking the famous question: is it clipping now? But wasn't Brahmo Samaj somewhat of a Christianization of Hindu Dharma? Yeah, we'll ask that now. Opposition to Murti Puja. Well, that could be argued as Nirajan onar awaz thik asche tom. Yeah, I've realized that it might be because the webcam catches the volume so much higher, so much more than my mic apparently. My mic has to be kept at a certain volume. Okay.
Hi, Nirajan.
Yes, sir. It's much better.
Is it better?
Yeah, way better.
Yeah. I've slowed down the ceiling fan, so I hope that
Okay.
helps.
So the other thing was that the question has already come that wasn't Brahmo Samaj somewhat of a Christianization of a Hindu Dharma?
Whether it was so or not is really outside the scope of our discussion today, because we are
Okay.
today more focused on the emergence of nationalist thought in Bengal.
Yeah.
But I would like to take this opportunity here to encourage our audience today to read up the two-part article that I have basically written, called Was Ram Mohan Roy a British Stooge?
Okay.
Part 1 and Part 2,
Okay.
which are available respectively on News 18 and Medium,
Okay.
where I have discussed this issue of Christianization, or whether the Raja was a Christian himself, in great detail. So
Okay.
if you read those articles, you'll get some answers. But even if you want me to discuss this further, I would love to take this up in possibly a future episode of Nirajan's
Okay.
podcast. So today, let me get back to the discussion of Maharshi Debendranath Tagore and the emergence of nationalist thought. So I was talking about the Tattva Bodhini Patrika and the Tattva Bodhini Sabha. The main thrust of the Tattva Bodhini Patrika was the same as what the Raja had tried to establish through his Brahmo Samaj, that is the revival of Vedantic thought. Okay. Maharshi Debendranath got interested in Vedanta because he had suddenly come upon a page of the Ishopanishad when he was quite young. and after getting to know, after reading it, first of all, he was not aware that this was a page from the Upanishads, because back then, such was the level of awareness among even educated people like the Maharshi. By the way, I should also mention that the Maharshi was actually a student in the Hindu college. Okay,
Okay.
so that you can appreciate how even the most advanced, in terms of higher education of Maharshi's generation, were not aware of these texts. And the page of the Ishopanishad that Maharshi came upon happened to be actually a translation of the Ishopanishad by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So
Oh.
it was only through Raja Ram Mohan Roy's translations of the Upanishads into Bangla and English that people of his time were getting to know about these gems of Hindu Shastra. Other than that, the educated, generally educated, not those who are experts in Sanskrit Shastras, of course they were aware, but even among them, the enthusiasm about Vedanta was not as much as we get to see in today's time. So if we judge people by retrojecting our situation onto them, such as Raja Ram Mohan Roy or Maharshi Debendranath, that would be a grave mistake, which many people tend to do in our times, and as a result, they come to conclusions which are vastly misleading, and they conclude that these people were simply playing around with our shastras, with our ideals of the Hindu Dharma. And that's completely a disaster in terms of conceptual understanding. That's why I always remind my audience to remember that we are standing on the shoulders of giants like Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Maharshi Debendranath. We have to appreciate them from the point of view of their times, from the situation, cultural as well as political, in which they were struggling, in which they were trying to come up with whatever actions and thought that they had. So after having encountered Raja Ram Mohan Rai's translation of Ishopanishad, Maharshi got interested into Vedanta, and he had founded this Tattva Bodhini Sabha when he was quite young. As the synergies became quite clear between the Tattva Bodhini Sabha and the Brahmo Samaj, which was struggling after the death of the Raja, Maharshi decided, I think around 1842, to merge these two organizations. Okay,
Okay.
and the result of this merging was the revitalization of the Brahmo Samaj itself.
Okay.
Maharshi decided to let go of the name Tattvabodhini Sabha. He retained the name Tattvabodhini Patrika, which became the mouthpiece of the Brahmo Samaj.
Okay.
And remember, this is the Brahmo Samaj. Because the break in Brahmo Samaj only happens much later in 1860s.
Okay.
Okay, so after the break, the oldest branch gets to be known as Adi Brahmo Samaj, or the original, quote unquote, original Brahmo Samaj. So for the time being, when we are discussing, the topic of our podcast today, which is the emergence of nationalism, we will be looking at mainly the Adi Samaj and the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj. Why? Because many of the thought leaders and political leaders, such as Maharshi himself, such as Rajnarayan Bose, Nabagopal Mitro, and also later on the next generation, namely Shuren Barujje, Surendranath Banerjee, and Ananda Mohan Bose. These people have come out from mainly the two organizations, the Adi Brahmo Samaj and the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj.
Sir, these things are happening in 1850s and 1842. So,
The merging of Tattva Bodhini Sabha and Raja Ram Mohan Roy's Brahmo Samaj happens in 1842, early
so
1850s.
it's
Yes.
even before the first revolt. So, like kicking out the
Yes.
British is not in anyone's mind as of yet, right?
Not in that overtly revolutionary sense, no. But let me point out that right at the time of the Raja, Raja Ram Mohan Roy himself was thinking in terms of India's political interest, mainly of the middle classes and the peasant class, okay, and also of the traders. These are the three classes of people that Raja Ram Mohan Roy was mainly politically interested in,
Okay.
probably because he himself belonged to one of these classes. And he goes to England in order to establish or ensure rather the rights of these three classes. He talks about, he makes a point in the petition that he submits in Parliament and also before the King of England, that the kind of system that the East India Company has instituted, the British East India Company has instituted back in Bengal, was quite exploitative, and he had in fact accounted for the amount of money that is getting siphoned off over and above what the British East India Company should be making in terms of profit. So this is quite revealing that the time of the Raja was something that we generally think of as acquiescing with the British and being very friendly with the British. But at least in the case of the Raja, we get to see that there is this acute awareness of a political interest and of a very distinctly Indian political interest.
Right.
He's talking about the bad treatment that the Indian peasants are getting at the hand of the British East India Company, as well as some exploitative landowners of Indian origin. He's talking about instituting laws which will be putting Indians, both Hindus and Muslims, at par with the European. The British and other Europeans. For example, I will give you, the case of the Jury Act. So, around 1826, I think, this act was passed, which barred the Indians, Hindus as well as Muslims, from sitting in the jury that will judge a European.
Right.
But the reverse was not true.
Okay.
So a European could sit in the jury and judge a Hindu or a Muslim of Indian origin. And also, very interestingly, this act also barred Hindus and Muslims, Indians in general, from judging Christian converts. And a Christian convert could sit in the jury and judge these non-Christian Hindus and Muslims. So this is something that the Raja had vehemently protested against. He had asked for the right of common Indians, irrespective of their religion, and vastly Hindus, to be present in the jury so that they can judge any person, irrespective of their creed, their religion. And also irrespective of their race, be they Europeans or Indians in origin. So that is just one example. There is the other example of the Press Act, which was brought at the time of Adam, I think. I'm forgetting his full name. Was it John Adam? The Governor General. Anyway, so this Press Act had been, perceived as draconian, not just by the Raja, but also by some British nationals who were contemporaries of the Raja and who were publishing, newspapers from Calcutta itself, such as James Silk Buckingham. And Buckingham happened to be a good friend of the Raja. They were both publishing newspapers and gazettes and periodicals at that time. And this Press Act had brought in the new rule that in order to be able to publish any kind of publication, any periodical publication especially, one has to get a prior license from the Governor General's Council. Okay, and this was perceived both by James Silk Buckingham as well as Raja Ram Mohan Roy as gravely insulting, not just in terms of the amount of red tapeism that it will start, but also in terms of principle. The Raja had basically reminded the British of the high principles that they so prided themselves about, of freedom and liberty. He reminded them of the great ideals of the British nation in criticizing this Press Act. And he said that in no civilized nation this sort of a draconian act, which requires a citizen living under the king of that particular empire or nation would be required to bring a license or to acquire a license in order to express their free opinions and also disseminate knowledge. Because also remember, this was the time when the press was a new thing, especially in India.
Yeah.
And therefore, knowledge dissemination was something that was of crucial importance for Raja, as well as some of the Europeans who had been trying to establish schools and other institutions of educational nature in India. So the Press Act became another point of contention that the Raja took up as a political activism point or area. And he got his petition against that particular act signed by 5 prominent citizens of Calcutta, including Prasanna Kumar Tagore as well as Prince Dwarkanath Tagore.
Okay.
So these are 2 examples of the political agitation that the Raja was doing. In this context, we should recognize the Raja's pioneering role in starting what will come to be known as constitutional agitation. Okay, something that we will see after the founding of the Indian National Congress in the 1880s will become the main political tool for those who were agitating against British rules or acts or laws that were perceived to be repressive from the Indian point of view. So the Raja can actually be considered as a pioneer of that particular political tool itself, constitutional agitation. So this is regarding Raja Rammohan Roy. We had decided actually that we will talk about him later, but this question brought me to discuss the nature of his political activism. Where were we?
We were discussing Debendranath Thakur.
Correct. So I think I had talked about the merging of the Tattvabodhini Sabha and the Brahmo Samaj. And from that point onward, we get to see that Akhoy Kumar Datta and some of his associates of the Tattvabodhini Sabha, now in the Brahmo Samaj, made it a point to bring out rationality, or rationalism rather, as an ism. To be of paramount importance, even higher than Hindu ideas and ideals, where these are clashing in terms of faith. Okay, so we get to see that within a decade or a little more than a decade, that Maharshi Debendranath Tagore is forced by people like Akhoy Kumar Datta and some of the people who were writing in the Tattvabodhini Patrika at that time to declare that the Upanishads cannot be taken to be the foundation of the Brahmo Dharma. Okay,
I see.
Therefore, it actually pained Maharshi Debendranath greatly, and he started to think about ways in which the link between the great Hindu ideas and ideals as propounded in the Vedas and Upanishads can still be kept intact in terms of connecting with the ideals of the Brahmo Samaj. This necessitated the writing of a new book, which can be taken as a holy book, so to say, of the religion of the Brahmo Samaj. Remember, even at that point, it was not any particular name that was given to the religion of the Brahmo Samaj. It was still the Vedanta Pratipadito Shotta Dharma, which the Raja had started calling it according to the trust deed of the Brahmo Samaj Foundation. So now, Debendranath does something very intelligent. He basically creates an anthology of only those parts of the Upanishads which can not be questioned in terms of the principles of rationalism. And he comes up with this book called Brahmo Dharma Grantha. Okay, I'll repeat the name of this book, Brahmo Dharma Grantha. This is a book compiled by Maharshi Debendranath Tagore, from the Upanishads mainly, but also from certain Tantra texts such as Mahanirban
Mohan.
Tantra and Kularnak Tantra. So, mainly focusing on the Upanishads, the Maharshi came out with this ingenious solution by which he could balance both sides. He could avoid a direct clash with the rationalists led by Akshay Kumar Datta, and as a result, a possible breakaway faction of the newly founded or newly revitalized Brahmo Samaj. And he also made sure that the connection between the ancient and time honored ideas and ideals of the Hindu Dharma uh, 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 was kept with the Brahmo Samaj, because this Brahmo Dharma Grantha was mainly drawn from the Upanishads. Of course, the Maharshi has also included some of his own remarks as to how to do the upasana for a general Brahmo. Okay, what is a general Brahmo? Let me define that. So there were two categories of Brahmos. Okay, especially from the time of this merger of the Tattva Bodhini Sabha and the Brahmo Samaj, the emergence of the new Brahmo Samaj at the time of Maharshi Debendranath.
Okay.
So Maharshi Debendranath joined the Brahmo Samaj movement by taking or receiving Diksha from Ramachandra Vidyavagish.
Okay.
This associate of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who was instrumental in keeping the Brahmo Samaj afloat during its challenging years after the Raja had passed away. So Maharshi Debendranath receives initiation or Diksha from Ramchandra Vidyavagish, and Ramchandra continues to be the Acharya of the new Brahmo Samaj, as led by, you can say, as led by Maharshi Debendranath.
What were their
But
rituals like in terms
yes,
of
I'm
these initiations?
I'm coming to that. So
Okay.
basically, Maharshi Debendranath started this, categorization that those who find synergies in terms of thought, in terms of taste, in terms of, mindset, in terms of bhava, to use an Indic word, or as we call it in Bangla, bhab, those who are of the same bhava, they could come and join the congregation of the Brahmo Samaj. They could participate in the ritual worship, which mainly consisted of singing, performance of Brahmo songs, which are known as Brahmo Sangit. Some of these were actually composed by people like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and even by Ramchandra Vidyavagish. Many of these were actually mantras from the Vedas and Upanishads put into new tunes. Okay, as simple as that. So that was the main congregational form of worship for the Brahmos, to sit together, to feel the community of Brahmos who worship the one God named Brahma. But at the same time, the Maharshi also started this new category of Brahmos called the initiated Brahmos. Okay, those who will receive initiation into Brahmo sadhana. And what was this sadhana? We get to know from the writings of people like Gaur Gobindo Rai, who had been a prominent Brahmo himself during the time of the Maharshi, and also from a more orthodox Hindu such as Panchkori Bandopadhyay, that this Diksha system basically was drawn from the Tantra, and particularly from the Mahanirvan Tantra. Why? Because Raja Ram Mohan Roy himself had taken initiation from a great tantrika named Hariharananda Tirtha Swami. This is the person who I have named in connection with Ramchandra Vidyavagish, because he happened to be in his Purvashrama before becoming sannyasi. He was actually the elder brother of Ramchandra Vidyavagish. So you can actually make the connections. Hariharananda Tirtha Swami as a tantric sannyasi who initiates Ram Mohan into Tantra, and according to Tantra, there is a particular way of worshipping Brahman. Okay, so this is called Tantric Brahmopasana. So this is the path that Raja Ram Mohan Roy had been following in terms of his personal sadhana. I'm not talking about Brahmo Samaj congregational religion. So this is what he had been following in his personal sadhana. Okay, as a Vedantin, as you can say. He was a vocal Vedantin, and whenever he used to debate, all these people who I had mentioned in the previous podcast, you had asked a question about Subramanya Shastri. There was also this Bhattacharya Shohit Bichar, that is a debate
Acha.
with Bhattacharya
Okay.
and several other people, and we get to see that most of the rejoinders, the Uttara Paksha by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, are actually drawn from the interpretations, the interpretational frameworks of Adi Shankaracharya.
I
Okay,
see.
so as we know that Adi Shankaracharya is one of those, in fact, perhaps one of the first Acharya, the first great ancient Acharya, who had commented upon the three main texts, or the three main kinds of texts of Vedanta, namely the Upanishads, then the Brahma Sutra, and then Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And if we pick up any of these Bengali as well as Sanskrit works, published Bengali and Sanskrit works of the Raja, where he is seen debating with various people such as Subramanya Shastri, with Bhattacharya, and even with Utsavananda Vidyavakish, another early recruit to his Atmiya Sabha, and then later to Brahmo Sabha, of the Raja's Brahmo Sabha. We get to see that the interpretations that he is drawing from are all Adi Shankaracharya's. So it is Advaita Vedanta, framework that the Raja is frequently using. Okay, you have a question?
Yeah. One person has asked 3 questions, and then I have a question as well.
Okay,
All interesting
let's
questions.
go one by one.
Our historiography of Hindu Renaissance is limited to just Bengal. Why are reformers like Ramalinga Swamigal from Tamil Nadu ignored in the historiography?
I have no answers basically. So
Okay.
I get to see that this history of Indian Renaissance includes not just Bengalis, but also people like Swami Dayanand Saraswati, without whom this history of Renaissance will be incomplete.
I see.
And also, I think the roles played by several of the connections that Bengali legends had made, such as Swami Vivekananda had made, such people, and also Sri Aurobindo had made. These people also become important, such as Maharaja Sayajirao,
Okay.
okay, of Baroda.
Okay.
Uh, he played an instrumental role in nurturing and supporting, patronizing Sri Aurobindo
I see.
during his transformational years, when he was basically transforming from a high and dry intellectual to a nationalist, a bhakta even. So I think that there has been some focus on the role of non-Bengali Indians in the history of our Indian Renaissance, but I'm sure that there should be more focus on figures like the person that you have just mentioned from Madras or from Tamil Nadu.
Did Brahmo Samaj ever interact with orthodox institutions like mathas? Did they have open conversations with dharmacharyas?
Oh yes, that's what we have been saying from the previous podcast episode actually. So
Yeah.
Subramanya Shastri is somebody who had traveled all the way from I think the Telangana region in order to have this debate with the Raja in Calcutta at the house of, I think, some Chaubeji. I'm forgetting his name. Interestingly, he was somebody from Bihar, and he also had to engage with this class of Bengali Brahmin Pandits called Bhatpada Samaj,
Okay.
which is basically an area where many traditional Sanskrit Pandits, all of them Brahmins, used to live.
Okay.
And they were attacking the Raja, not just rationally, using the shastras, but sometimes even they were making personal attacks, going ballistic, and making all sorts of nasty things in order to attack him.
Okay.
But there were sane and rational, interlocutors in this debate as well,
Hmm.
such as Utsavananda Vidyavagish. Utsavananda was a traditional Brahmin Pandit, and he had engaged in this debate with the Raja regarding the nature of Brahman and the methods of worship. And after he got sort of convinced by the Raja
Hmm.
of the superiority of his Uttara Paksha, the Raja's Uttara Paksha,
Hmm.
or the Raja's explanations,
Hmm.
he considered coming over to the camp of the Raja. He actually joined the Atmiya Sabha as a cynic to Raja's actions and Raja's thought,
Hmm.
but he ended up being a follower of the Raja. And in fact, even after the Raja passed away, Utsavananda had been a great help to Ramachandra Vidyavagish to keep the Brahmo Samaj afloat. He was also active at the time of Maharshi Debendranath Tagore. And let me also make this interesting point about the connection that Utsavananda had with Sri Ramakrishna, who we should also discuss today.
Hmm.
Uh, do you know who was the person who had declared Sri Ramakrishna as an avatar?
No.
This is not something that many people discuss. So we now know that Sri Ramakrishna is considered an avatara by thousands of devotees of
Hmm.
the Ramakrishna mission and Mutt,
Hmm.
and of course by all his direct disciples such
Hmm.
as Swami Vivekananda. But the first person who had actually declared
Hmm.
Sri Ramakrishna having the lakshanas or the traits of an avatara
Hmm.
was actually the son of Utsavananda Vidyavagish. He was a great Vaishnava saint,
Hmm.
and he had been invited by Mathuranath Bishwas, the son-in-law of Rani Rashmani, who basically patronized uh, both Sri Ramakrishna and his elder brother at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple, where they used to work as purohits. And in this congregation, where this great Vaishnava saint had proved
Hmm.
from traditional sources that these are the traits which should be recognized as that of an avataras.
Hmm.
So there is a connection between Utsavananda Vidyavagish and Sri Ramakrishna, and indirectly a connection between these two great
Yeah.
personalities coming from two different eras, actually, Raja Ram
Hmm.
Mohan and Thakur Sri Ramakrishna.
Right. And my other question is that did the Brahmo Samaj ever appeal to anyone other than just the Brahmins and Kayasthas?
Of course, the
Okay.
Brahmo Samaj, and mainly, from the Raja's time itself, there was a close engagement, which often became confrontational with Muslims as well as Christians. So this is why you get to see that in the Raja's Farsi tract
Hmm.
called Tuhfatul Muwahhidin, which is basically, when you translate it into English, it becomes something like a gift to the worshippers of one God. Okay, Tofat ul Muwahhidin. In this particular tract, it's a small tract
Hmm.
written in Farsi
Okay.
with an introduction in Arabic, both written by the Raja himself when he started living in Calcutta. That he attacks Abrahamic religions. Okay,
Okay.
it's not just Christianity that he attacks here.
Hmm.
He also attacks Islam by pointing out what he thinks are the
Hmm.
flaws in terms of worshipping the one true God. Okay,
I see.
and this one true God, the idea of the one true God that the Raja had,
Hmm.
was more of an universal, concept,
Yeah.
which can be approached by people irrespective of their caste, creed, their religion, or even their nationality.
Hmm.
Which is why the Raja is again and again talking about a congregation
Hmm.
of Brahmos, and even before the Brahmos for Unitarians,
Hmm.
where any person, irrespective of their birth, nationality, creed, color, race, they could join the congregation. But
Hmm.
they will have to abide by certain principles which the Raja had found in the Upanishads only. So, in this regard, the Raja was actually more orthodox when we compare him with Maharshi Debendranath Tagore, because Maharshi Debendranath Tagore had to come to a compromise with the rationalists in his Tattva Bodhini Sabha, led by Akshay Kumar Datta, who I mentioned. But he had handled that situation quite intelligently, making sure that the close connection between the great Hindu ideas and ideals of the Upanishads and the Vedas do not get dissociated, do not get detached with whatever he was doing in terms of the Brahmo Samaj. But the Raja had made no such compromises. He was falling back for all his arguments upon the Hindu Shastras. He had taken up instances from not just the Upanishads, but also from the Tantra. He had taken instances also from Srimad Bhagavata Purana, which was one of the oft quoted texts apart from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And he had also relied upon the Itihasa Purana, mainly from the Mahabharata. Okay, this is something that we get to see also in Maharshi Debendranath Tagore's example, with whom we started today's discussion. That in the Atmajivani, which is basically the name of his autobiography, and the word itself means autobiography in Bangla. It's in Bangla. He had written it in Bangla, and he had given the work of translating it to his sons Satyendranath and Rabindranath. So, in that particular autobiography, we get to see that most of the quotations that the Maharshi has used are coming from three texts. Firstly, Upanishads, which is a collection of texts. Secondly, coming from the Bhagavad Gita. And thirdly, coming from Mahabharata, as well as the Srimad Bhagavata Purana. So, Itihasa Purana was also something that both Raja Ram Mohan Roy as well as Maharshi Debendranath Tagore had relied upon whenever they were countering, whenever they were establishing their point of view that they are worshipping the one Brahman, which has been propounded by the Vedas, the Upanishads, which have been celebrated by all the Hindu Shastras. So that is a point of commonality as well as difference that we have to keep in mind while discussing Maharshi Debendranath and Raja Ram Mohan Roy. In my view, I think Raja Ram Mohan Roy comes out as much more orthodox compared to Maharshi Debendranath.
I see. Okay. Isn't one true God Abrahamization? Vedas have shlokas like Ekam Sat Vigra Vahu Vadanti. Vadanti.
Bahudha Vadanti. Yes, that's a very good question. And in fact, this is a question that the Raja had to face again and again in his various debates with people like Utsavananda Vidyavagish, Bhattacharya, and even Subramanya Shastri. So, the strategy or the answer that the Raja used to give, the answer that he had formed was something like this, that whenever you are talking about worshipping from a Hindu point of view, or even from any point of view, you have to consider this concept of adhikara bheda. What is adhikara bheda? It is the ability, the capability of an individual in order to conceive, to feel the surge of spirituality and the quality of godliness in any concept or in any idea. Okay, so he regarded this adhikara bheda concept, which is very much a Hindu concept, that not everybody was suitable for all modes of worship. Some people who are nimnadhikaris, who are at a basic level of understanding and conceiving the idea of God, are suitable for yagas, homas, and worshipping God in an image or an icon. Okay, and then there are higher adhikaris, the uchadhikaris, who are more well suited, who are more suitable to conceive the idea of God. And how does this transition happen from an nimnadhikari to a higher adhikari? The Raja said that it is only through practice, through the anushilan of the particular mode of worship that one is engaged in, that slowly their mind will become fixed on the concept of God, on the idea of God, even if they are worshipping the image.
Hmm.
And when that particular stage has been reached by an individual, he or she should altogether stop worshipping the idea of God in an icon or an image.
Hmm.
From that point onward, that person has to uh, worship Brahman in his saguna but formless, nameless, uh, idea.
Okay.
So
Saguna, but formless, nameless.
yes, saguna means somebody who has qualities such
Yeah.
as powers,
Yeah.
but somebody who does not have any name, any particular name,
Hmm.
or even any form. So the name Brahma
Hmm.
is also something of a signifier that is generic. In
Hmm.
fact, the name that the Upanishads use very frequently to indicate Brahman, to indicate this idea of the absolute,
Hmm.
is simply Tat, which is nothing but a pronoun,
Hmm.
which means that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we have words like tattva.
Hmm.
That's why we have the great Mahavakya Tattvamasi.
Hmm.
Okay, so tat is a word by which the Brahman or the
Hmm.
absolute is indicated. Therefore, this is to suggest that this is a nameless idea,
Hmm.
not an idea. It's a reality.
Hmm.
Okay, to call it an idea would be actually wrong.
Hmm.
But somebody who's progressing in that path
Hmm.
from the position of an Imnadhikari to an Uchadhikari,
Hmm.
this transition is very much not only possible but also desirable. This is something that the Raja points out again and again in his debates, which
Hmm.
features this question you just asked. And
Hmm.
therefore, he was of the opinion that now is the time where the rationally inclined and enlightened in terms of higher education that his generation was receiving,
Hmm.
they should go for this higher idea of the higher adhikari.
Hmm.
Okay, I think we can debate about how right or wrong he was in suggesting that simply because somebody has rationalism,
Hmm.
therefore they should go for this higher adhikari idea of worshipping the saguna but nirakara and nirupadhi Brahman.
Hmm.
But that is something that he did. So this is the thing about what Raja was doing, and
Right.
this is how he also countered the questions that were thrown at him.
Hmm. So these people were not atheists by any means.
Oh, not at all. Not
Hmm.
at all. The Raja has not only talked about the importance of a religious life, he
Hmm.
was of the opinion that somebody who does not have religion
Hmm.
will be considered an amoral person, somebody who lacks morality.
Hmm.
And as a result, that person will be socially castigated even.
Hmm.
Okay, so in the eyes of the Raja, spirituality played a very big part in somebody's life.
Hmm.
What we get to see is that the Raja is talking again and again in terms of shunning deshachara and lokachara.
Okay.
Again, this is something with which we can go into debate whether
Hmm.
shunning deshachara and lokachara is actually a practical and an intelligent strategy to take up. But again, we have to judge him from the times in which he was functioning.
What is
Okay,
Deshachara and Lokachara?
Deshachara and Lokachara are something that we can describe by the Sanskrit term Upadharma, which is
Okay.
something that has flourished not based on or not founded upon the Shastra texts.
Okay.
Something that people have formed within their locale, within time and space, which is
Hmm.
limited.
I
Okay,
see.
which is not universally true or applicable
Okay. Okay.
for all times and all people,
Hmm.
as far as we are talking about a Hindu context.
So this is what he
Okay,
means when he says rationality, that moving away from the Deshachara and Lokachara.
in a great part, yes.
Okay. Okay. So then go on. Let's get to Ramakrishna Dev then.
I will, but
Okay.
let me just make this point.
Right.
The Raja was making this point that one has to shun Deshachara and Lokachara
Hmm.
because you have to understand the times in which he was operating.
Hmm.
So what was the contingency of his time? What was the great necessity to talk about the concept of Brahman? This was a time when not only the Muslims who had been trying to proselytize
Hmm.
to convert Hindus,
Hmm.
but also the Christians and especially the evangelical missionaries,
Hmm.
many they were
Wait, hello,
evangelical
hello.
missionaries.
Wait, your internet was gone for a while. Wait, yeah, yeah. Now it's fine, I think. Yeah, please
Okay,
repeat the
hello.
sentence. Yeah, it's fine now.
Okay, so I was saying that we have to remember what times he was operating in.
Yeah.
This is a time when not only the Muslims who had been trying to proselytize Hindus for quite a few centuries, but also they were joined by the Christian evangelical missionaries, many of whom were located in places like Serampur and Calcutta. And because the Christian evangelical missionaries, especially, had the sort of moral backing and also the racial backing of the new ruling class of India, namely the British, even though let me also add at this point that they did not, at least till that time, had any official government backing. Okay,
Okay.
even at the time of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. It is only after the Raja that we get to see that the government policy was oriented towards, encouraging Christian missions, evangelical missions in India. But at the time of the Raja, private individuals and evangelical missionaries were pushing this narrative that Hinduism was a very inferior religion and Christianity was highly superior. And they were basically pointing out that because the Hindus were worshipping so many gods and goddesses and they had so many superstitions, therefore the Christian religion was much more superior. And what happened is that many people who happened to be at the position of uh, the subject, they got to be influenced by this sort of narrative, and therefore the Raja found it imperative to come up with a form of Hindu religion, a particular segment of Hindu religion, which emphasized on the concept of Brahman, which is formless, therefore there is no question of many gods, and which is also absolute, therefore which is one. This is the main reason which we get to see in the Raja's controversies with people like William Carey and also John Marshman. These are, Serampur missionaries. And in fact, the Serampur missionaries got really worked up when they saw that one of their own folks, namely William Adam, I think that was his name, who was also an evangelical missionary, got convinced by the power of arguments of the Raja.
Okay.
Okay, especially because the Raja had written a number of tracts called Precepts of Jesus and Appeal to the Christian Public. Okay, he made it a series like first appeal, the second appeal, and the final appeal. Okay, so mainly through these 3 or 4 tracts, he was forwarding this argument that the basis on which Christianity claims its superiority over Hinduism, namely that Hindus worship so many gods, that was faulty because the Christians themselves were worshipping multiple gods in the form of the Trinity. Okay, so he attacked Trinitarianism. He also attacked certain similar rituals, especially rituals and forms of worshipping in Islam, mainly in Tuhfatul Muwahhidin. And therefore we get to see that Raja Ram Mohan Rai emerges as the first Indian or Hindu critic of Abrahamic religions. This is something that is unheard of and unimaginable at the time when the British
Yeah.
were at the very height of their power.
Yeah.
So we have to keep in mind this particular historical contingency, this special situation, which which made the Raja think in those terms, where he can bring out the superiority of Hinduism, if not superiority, then at least to keep Hinduism at par with other great world religions, such as Islam and Christianity.
Okay. We have some questions. We are not going to take them. We are going to do a separate episode on all of these personalities separately. So now, since you are short of time, let's get to Ramakrishna Dev.
Yes. Why did I say that Sri Ramakrishna, Paramahamsa, happens to be one of the personalities who we must examine in order to fully understand what was going on in the nationalist movement in its formative areas. I will give instances of certain individuals who played very important roles in the nationalist movement. Number one, Bipin Chandra Pal. Okay. Number two, Brahmabandhu Upadhyay.
Okay.
Number three, Swami Vivekananda.
Hmm.
Okay. What is the common connection or missing link between all these three? It is nothing but Sri Ramakrishna. How? Both Bipin Chandra Pal and Brahmabandhu Upadhyay started their life as Brahmos. Okay,
Okay.
both Bipin Chandra Pal as well as Brahmabandhu Upadhyay. By the way, for those of you who are not so aware of, not so familiar with the name of Brahmabandhu Upadhyay, let me tell you that uh, during the last decade of the 19th century and the first decade of the 20th, precisely at the time when the Swadeshi movement was getting formed and when it also had erupted in a big way from 1905 onwards, Brahmabandhu Upadhyay was instrumental in creating public opinion against the British and in favor of the paths of Swadeshi and boycott.
I see.
In fact, through the multiple publications that Brahmabandhu Upadhyay was editing, managing, and publishing sometimes on his own, such as Sandhya, such as 20th century, these are publications which went ballistic, sometimes became too extremist, one could say. At least that is the kind of language that we get to see from the historiography of Haridas Mukhopadhyay and Uma Mukhopadhyay, who happened to be the only biographer other than, I think, Prabodh Chandra. I'm forgetting the name of this author, but there are only two biographies extant on Brahmabandhu Upadhyay. One happens to be from quite a long time ago, and the other is from 1961, written by Haridas and Uma Mukhopadhyay. And they use this language that Brahmabandhu's writings, his editorials in Sandhya especially, were becoming, to sound very extremist. And Rabindranath Tagore, in his memoirs, also testify this. He talks about how Brahmabandhu Upadhyay transformed from a simple Vedantic sannyasi to a firebrand writer and editor. As a result of which, he had been dragged to the court, but he did not get jailed because even before he was convicted, he passed away.
Oh.
So Brahmabandhu Upadhyay is a very, very important figure, almost as important as Bipin Chandra Pal, the firebrand orator of the Swadeshi and boycott era of the Swadeshi movement.
Right.
Okay, so both Brahmabandhu as well as Bipin Chandra Pal, they started their life as Brahmos, but they started to come nearer to the ideals of Vivekananda, thanks to who? A common personality, namely Vijay Krishna Goswami.
Okay.
Now, who was Vijay Krishna Goswami? He again started out as a Brahmo. He was actually one of the followers of Keshav Chandra Sen, and later he had differences with Keshav Chandra. So he was more close to Sadharan Brahmo Samaj folks. But Vijay Krishna Goswami started visiting Sri Ramakrishna, and from that point onwards, there was a transformation. We also get to see the same kind of transformation in the life of Keshav Chandra Sen, right?
Okay.
So that is more famously known, but I think not more people know about, not as many people know about Vijay Krishna Goswami's transformation. Vijay Krishna also started out as a Brahmo, and he became a sort of great follower of Sri Ramakrishna. And later on, he became a sannyasi, and he attracted such disciples as Bipin Chandra Pal as well as Brahmabandhu Upadhyay. So you get to see how indirectly Sri Ramakrishna's influence is working on people as diverse as Brahmabandhu, Bipin Pal, and even Swami Vivekananda.
Yeah.
I would also mention another person, Satish Chandra Mukhopadhyay. Who was Satish Chandra? He was the founder of the Dawn Journal. Okay, there was a journal called Dawn, not to be confused with the Dawn newspaper of Pakistan, but this was a sort of a mouthpiece of a Bhagavat Chatushpathi. Okay, a Bhagavat Chatushpathi was nothing but a Gurukul school that
Okay.
Satish Chandra had started sometime in 1890s, I think in 1897. And Dawn started out as a mouthpiece of that Bhagavat Chatushpati. The goal of this Chatushpati was to create an environment in the ideal of the Gurukula ashramas of ancient India. And the idea was to prepare students, mold their characters, and educate them in the vicinity, in the close companionship of Guru, who will be uh, not only knowledgeable but also morally upright. Okay, and Satish Chandra himself played the role of such a guru, and he was actually uh, commanded by his guru, namely Vijay Krishna Goswami. Satish Chandra also was the disciple of Vijay Krishna. So
Okay.
you get to see that Vijay Krishna is the guru of Satish Chandra, Brahmobandhu Upadhyay, and also Bipin Chandra Pal. Okay, so all these people are getting influenced directly or indirectly by Sri Ramakrishna. Satish Chandra Mukhopadhyay, in fact, had decided to become a sannyasi
Okay.
following the line of Vivekananda, because Vivekananda happened to be his classmate from his presidency college days, and they knew each other from quite early on as young boys, in fact. So
Oh.
when Vivekananda came back from his great triumph in America and also in England, his triumph of the West, when he came back to Calcutta, Satish Chandra met him, and of course, they had very good connections from before. And after this new meeting with Vivekananda being a world celebrity, he desired to become a sannyasi too. But he was stopped by Vijay Krishna Goswami, his guru, who had commanded him specifically to start this school. And lo and behold, from this school onward, and especially through the connection of this journal called Dawn, it went on to become the Dawn Society, which had a very close connection with Anushilan Shomiti,
Oh.
the greatest and the first Gupta Shomiti, or the secret society of revolutionaries, which had a close connection with the Jugantor Dal, led by people like Bhupendranath Dotto, younger brother of Swami Vivekananda, and Barindra Ghosh, younger brother of Sri Aurobindo. So all these people are converging on one personality, and that is Sri Ramakrishna. I have mentioned four very important personalities who are connected with the Swadeshi movement, which
Yeah.
is considered to be the first eruption of Indian nationalism in its political form. Okay, and this is not just me or Haridas Mukherjee or Uma Mukherjee saying. This has been attested by both Gopal Krishna Gokhale and none other than Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay.
Okay, so if you look into Gokhale's and Gandhi's observations about the nature of the Indian national movement in the 20th century, both of them trace the initiation of the long march to freedom in 1947 from the glorious revolution, in the words of Binoy Kumar Sarkar, of 1905, which is the eruption of the Swadeshi movement in Bengal as a result of Lord Curzon's decision to partition Bengal. Okay,
So.
so this is why I say that we need to look at Sri Ramakrishna majorly
Yeah.
in terms of the influence that he had on all these various thought leaders as well as revolutionary leaders of the Swadeshi movement. And in my book, in my upcoming book on Agni Yug,
Okay.
uh, the revolutionary era of Bengal, I'm going to look into this particular missing link
Oh.
at a close way.
Okay. Great. So one great question, and then we get to Rishi Bankim. In the
Yes,
Gurukul, did Satish Chandra teach
the
sciences?
youngest son, Rabindranath, had fulfilled his.
But it's not delivering. Something is going on. They think that
Okay, is it
everybody is
fine
saying
now?
the same thing. Not yet. Internet is
Okay,
fine. I don't know what's going on.
I think the internet is playing funny.
I can see you clearly. I can hear you clearly, but it's not going to YouTube.
Oh my God, that must be divine intervention then. or has YouTube started censoring us already?
It's saying no data. What's going on? Let me solve this
Shall I
problem.
join again?
No, it's not from your side. It's from the OBS side. Everything seems to
Okay.
be fine here. Can't even pause this. Let me just wait a little. Otherwise, we'll have to do something else.
Sure.
Everything seems to be running fine. Okay, now it's all right. Yeah, we are back online.
Shall
No, no. It's gone again. Wait, still no data.
Okay.
Internet is working fine.
Uh-huh. Something from YouTube side maybe?
আমার মনে হচ্ছে ওবিএস এর কিছু সমস্যা, ওবিএস যেটা কাস্ট করে ইউটিউবে, আমার স্ক্রিন
Okay.
সব কিছু কম্পিউটার থেকে সব কিছু ইউটিউবে পাঠায় ওবিএস। ইউটিউব ইজ নট রিসিভিং এনাফ ভিডিও টু মেনটেন স্মুথ স্ট্রিমিং। লেটস সি, the stream is current bitrate 1065. We recommend you use stream bitrate of 6800 kbps. We can't change bitrate in the middle of the stream anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Then it will end. Okay. No, it's getting stuck.
Are you getting any feedback from your audience?
They are saying that it's not showing anything, and I can actually see myself that what's going on in the screen. That it's all stuck.
Acha. Acha. Strange. Let me check from my phone.
Okay, guys, let me know if the audio is coming fine. If the even if the video gets stuck, কেউ কেউ বলছে যে এসে গেছে এবার। Okay, it's fine now. Rajit, it's fine.
Is it?
Yeah. Do you
Shall
have
we continue?
time?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Shall
yeah,
I go on?
yeah. It's fine now.
Okay then. So I was talking about um,
The Gurukul.
sorry, right, the Gurukul. That there was this question whether it focused on Western sciences alone,
Hmm.
or Hindu shastras as well.
Hmm.
So the answer is that it focused on both these knowledge systems,
Hmm.
Western as well as Indic,
Hmm.
Hindu. Uh, and I also wanted to mention in this regard uh, that Brahmo Bandhavadhyay, who we have already mentioned, was a great practitioner of the Sanskrit Shastras as well as Euclidean geometry.
Okay.
So, so that is just to mention the kind of diversification of knowledge that all these individuals had. And Satish Chandra, in fact, was trained in English literature as well as law.
Hmm.
So he used to teach majorly, literature and also English grammar
Hmm.
to many of his students who went on to become, important officers and educators and administrators in the British administration, many of them. So the Bhagavat Chatushpati was a unique project of its kind,
Hmm.
where both Hindu Shastras as well as Western sciences were taught at the same time.
Okay. So then now we get to Rishi Bonkim. I guess we'll have to do it very quickly.
Correct. So Rishi Bonkim is somebody, I should say at the very beginning, who can be properly evaluated only maybe in another 100 or 200 years, because I think the kind of contribution that he has made,
Hmm.
and the reason for which he is justly given the epithet of Rishi, which we so easily throw around sometimes without even realizing its true purport.
Hmm.
uh, he had revolutionized Hindu Dharma in terms of restating it for a very, very different age, that is the modern age of 19th century.
Hmm.
Okay, and in that sense, he should be, you know, he should be placed side by side with the great acharyas of yore, such as Adi Shankaracharya or Ramanujacharya or Sri Chaitanya Deva. This is something that might sound absurd if I say it right now, but
Hmm.
I think in the centuries to come, he will definitely come to be regarded as that. Why is so? Because he had restated Hinduism in such a manner, in such a rational manner,
Hmm.
that was acceptable, not only acceptable, but also greatly appealing to the emerging youth
Hmm.
who were the products of the universities of the 19th century.
Hmm.
So, mainly we get to see in two of Bankim's works, the first of which is Krishna Charitra, and the other is Dharma Tattva. Uh, Dharma Tattva being the treatise or work in which Bankim Chandra basically offers his Anushilan Tattva, okay, something which will become a great inspiration for the revolutionary nationalists, as you can see
Hmm.
from the very title of their first organization, namely Anushilan Samiti.
Hmm.
So what was so essential about Bankim's Hinduism that the revolutionary nationalists fell back on it? Bankim said that the Hindu religion is something that is intrinsic to the Hindu nationhood and its entity as a political system, you know, or a political entity.
Hmm.
Okay, this is something that may have been present in the Hindu consciousness in earlier eras,
Hmm.
and especially in the era of Chhatrapati Shivaji, but it had completely gone down in the intervening centuries.
Hmm.
This is something that is intellectually and systematically established once again by none other than Bankim.
Hmm.
And anybody who has read Dharma Tattva as well as Krishna Charitra would agree when I say that Hinduism was restated and made suitable for an audience, for practitioners, not just audience, not just as, you know, intellectual exercises,
Hmm.
but as a form of religion that can be practiced sincerely and honestly by all these products of the university, the higher educated youth
Hmm.
of India.
Hmm.
So this is why we get to see that Bankim, and also I should mention Bhudev Mukhopadhyay, his friend and close associate, who had inspired people like Chandranath Boshu, who came out with
Hmm.
Hindutva, Hindur Prakrito Itihash, a book where Hindutva was, explained from a historical perspective.
Hmm.
Okay, Bankim not only introduces the term, he coins the term Hindutva,
Hmm.
but he treats the concept of Hindutva as a theological and social idea.
Hmm.
Okay,
Right.
he does not treat it so much as a historical idea, even though his Krishna Charitra is basically a historical analysis of historical and moral analysis of
Hmm.
Sri Krishna's character as we find it in the Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavata Purana, and
Hmm.
also in the Gita.
Hmm.
Gita being a part of the Mahabharata anyway.
Hmm.
Okay, but there in Bankim's Hindutva, the focus is more on theology and sociology.
Hmm.
Okay, social organization. From that, we get to see that a very, very distinct historical and political focus in Chandranath Bosu's Hindutva, Hindur Prakriti Itihash. And next to Chandranath, the other person who takes up Hindutva as a concept is Rabindranath Tagore. Okay, this is why I think Rabindranath Tagore's name should be taken in this chronology of Bankim, Bhudev together, followed by Chandranath, followed by Rabindranath. Okay,
I see.
I do not like to associate Rabindranath only with Ram Mohan Rai, Debendranath, and Rabindranath, the legacy of his family and the legacy of Brahmoism. Okay,
Right, right.
that will be a very, very a narrow
Narrow
view of
view.
Rabindranath. Rabindranath was much more bold in enunciating Hindutva than any of the precursors that he had, even more than Bankim Chandra, because whereas Bankim Chandra uses the term Hindutva only twice, I think he has not used the term Hindutva more than twice, but he develops the concept without even naming it in terms of theology, in terms of sociology, social organization. And Bhudev also does the same. He also talks about Hindutva without perhaps naming it. I'm not quite sure about Bhudev's use of the term Hindutva. I have to read Bhudev even more closely, even more carefully in order to know whether he uses the term at all. But certainly he deals with the idea in a sociological approach. And we get to see that Chandranath has written a whole book with the title Hindutva, and he treats it as a political and historical idea. But Rabindranath has used it in its holistic sense. He has taken Hindutva in its 360-degree view, talking about the theological aspect, talking about the sociological, psychological, moral, ethical, all aspects that you can associate, and also political. Okay, which is why across at least 7 essays by Rabindranath, Bengali essays, all of them, the term Hindutva occurs not less than 22 times. Okay, which is the highest in terms of the word's occurrence. Okay,
I see.
which is why I locate the intellectual, genealogy of Rabindranath starting from Bankim Chandra. I think if there is any one person, if I have to point out any one person who can be regarded as the great legacy bearer, the inheritor of Bankim Chandra's legacy, it should be Rabindranath. And therefore, in order to understand Rabindranath, we have to study Bankim Chandra going back in time, mainly through the two works, Krishna Charitra Dharma Tattva, and also his 4 political novels, namely Anandamot, Rajsingho, Devi Chaudhurani, and Sitaram. These are the 4 novels which are closely interconnected and also premised on the concept of Anushilan Tattva, which Bankim Chandra develops in Dharma Tattva. And why Rabindranath is relevant for the nationalist movement, I think I have given some idea about it in the previous podcast, but let me reiterate. Let me reiterate by saying that before Rabindranath became a recluse in Bolpur, because he decided, much like the youngest brother of Karamazov, from Dostoevsky's brothers Karamazov, he had perhaps decided that the constructive work dedicating towards the motherland and sacrificing the riches and the comforts of life will have a more long lasting impact in terms of the country's political as well as social and cultural freedom. Okay, before he decided on that path, he was as actively involved in politics as anybody of his era. Name anyone, Bipin Chandra Pal, Brahmo Upadhyay, he will be seen as an out and out political leader. So far, he had gone so far as to give shelter to political extremists like Bipin Chandra Pal, who used to come to his Jodashako house in order to hide, in order to take shelter, even sometimes after midnight. This is something that has been testified by Abanindranath Tagore in his memoir called Ghorwa. Okay, and he also majorly used 3 of his nephews, Surendranath Tagore, Abanindranath Tagore, and Gaganendranath Tagore, at the front line of the processions and also the picketing, the processions, the dharnas, that were happening throughout Calcutta as a result of the Swadeshi and boycott movements. Abanindranath Gharoa also mentions the fact that there were times when the British police were exercising all sorts of repressive measures, full throttle atrocities on the students who were at the forefront of the Swadeshi and boycott movement and demonstrations, right? So Rabindranath used to send Surendranath Tagore as a leader of all these students who would resist the police atrocities, and he would rescue the student activists from the places of contention. So this was the kind of role that Rabindranath was playing, an out and out political role for which the British police had kept him as second most important suspect. Okay.
How old
And
was Rabindranath when this was happening?
so this was 1905, and he would be 45 years old.
Okay.
Okay, so in his 40s, Rabindranath was a firebrand Swadeshi leader.
Right.
And this is just one aspect of his work, which is out and out political,
Yeah.
sometimes at the forefront, sometimes from, the backdrop.
Hmm.
But the other aspect that Rabindranath played was of the agitator simply through his songs.
Hmm.
We have the testimony of somebody as important as Bipin Chandrapal,
Hmm.
as well as Brahmabandhu Upadhyay, who talk about the town hall congregation, the town hall speech that Rabindranath had delivered right at the time of the declaration of the Bengal partition by Lord Curzon, where he had read out his Swadeshi Samaj essay. And the Swadeshi Samaj, now a part of an anthology called Atma Shakti, a Bengali essay, and has been translated also. In this essay, Rabindranath talks about shunning everything that has to do with the British political system, the professional systems, the educational institutions, and anything basically that has to do with the British administration and cooperation of the British administration. So even before Gandhiji, Rabindranath is a propounder of the non-cooperation. Okay, something that Aurobindo was also preaching at that time. Many people think that Gandhiji is the original propounder of non-cooperation, but much before Gandhiji even came to India, people like Rabindranath and Aurobindo were actively preaching non-cooperation, and to a very extreme, manner, in a very extreme manner. And Rabindranath had, concluded this particular congregation and the reading of his essay of Swadeshi Samaj, in which he's talking about gaining self-reliance, Atmanirbharta, in Modi's terms, by singing for the first time his song Amar Sonar Bangla Ami Tomaয় Bhalobashi. And Bipin Chandrapal reports that when that song was being performed by Rabindranath, the people went mad. They started dancing, singing along with Rabindranath, and in all the processions regarding boycott and Swadeshi, and mainly Rabindranath was leading these processions along with his nephews like Gaganendranath, Abanindranath, and Surendranath. There would be songs written by Rabindranath. So Rabindranath, by writing songs and poetry, was basically agitating people. So that is also another very, very important aspect of Rabindranath's political activism. We sometimes see nowadays, because people would wear dhuti Punjabi and shadi and use flowers, etc., and sing Rabindra Sangit in a particular nasal tone, and therefore Rabindra Sangit will be perceived as something that is naka, as we call in Bangla. But Rabindranath's songs of the Swadeshi Porjay or Swadeshi category were basically agitational songs. And where can we find the main igniter of Rabindranath's inspiration? We can find it in Bankim Chandra.
I see. This was fascinating. We need a separate for all of these people. We need separate episodes basically. And did Rabindranath even then go through some evolution to some different kinds of views in his later age?
Oh, yes, yes. So Rabindranath has three phases. One is the national phase, which is basically a funny term, because Nabagopal Mitra, who was an associate of Rajnarayan Bosu, and both being patronized by Debendranath Tagore, had started the Hindu Mela. And the Hindu Mela was initially called Jatiyo Mela, or the National Mela, National Fair. Okay, and Navagopal Mitra had this funny streak. Whatever initiative he would take, be it publishing a magazine or taking out a procession or starting a mela, he would name them national. So he came to be known as National Navagopal. Okay, so three brothers, no, not three, four brothers, Dijendranath, Satyendranath, Jyotirindranath, and Rabindranath were main participants along with the other brothers in this Hindu Mela. And they were even so radical in terms of their time at least, to start a Gupta Samiti, a secret society, which was started basically at the provocation of Rajnarayan Bosu and Jyotirindranath Tagore, who was the eldest in that group in terms of the boys who participated, also took up Rabindranath, also took in Rabindranath. Okay, and they had a very esoteric ritual. They had a morar khuli, a skull, and blood was taken with a sword, and there was this lamp on which people had to keep their hand and take a pratigya. They have to take an oath in order to maintain secrecy about the goals of that secret society, which was basically to free India. So that was the first nationalist fervor of his young days, and then he became more of this political personality till his 40s, writing as well as doing all forms of overt and covert operations, supporting as well as showing his own face at the head of the processions. And then after this, he came to this realization, especially when the Maniktala bomb case had spiraled out of hand, and all these young people were getting killed by the British. Okay, either on the gallows or in encounters. We know that Khudiram Bose was put to the gallows, and Profullo Chaki had to die in an encounter. He basically killed himself. Okay, otherwise the British would have caught hold of him. And Rabindranath understood that these people, these young people, had great fervor, and he respected that fervor like anything. Even in his late years, when Jotin Das had died, we get to hear this particular account from his one of his disciples. He writes that there was a sort of rehearsal going on for a play that Rabindranath had written, and the news came suddenly that Jotin Das has passed away as a result of his fast unto death in the Lahore jail. And this account goes on to describe Rabindranath becoming completely still and very, very serious. He did not speak. He was motionless, and he sat there without speaking a word for a long time. And he dismissed everybody. The rehearsal was cancelled. When he came back next day, he came out with a new song. And this song was Shorbo Khorbo Tare Dohe Tobo Krodho Daho He Bhoirab Shokti Dao Bhakto Pane Chaho Dukkhero Manthano Bege Chutibe Amrito শঙ্কা হতে রক্ষা পাবে যারা মৃত্যুভীত তব দীপ্ত রৌদ্র তেজে নির্ঝরিয়া গলিবে যে প্রস্তর শৃঙ্খলন মুক্ত ত্যাগেরও প্রবাহ. This is something that I had to recite in Bengali, but I have translated it in English. Maybe we can share it later on with your podcast, so that our non-Bengali audience can also read it. So this is the kind of politics that Rabindranath had always supported, either overtly or covertly. In his final days, just 2 years before he passed away, 1939, he publicly endorsed the brand of politics that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was leading. And this is even after the time when Horipura Congress had happened, when Tripuri Congress has happened, and Netaji has been basically sidelined. Okay, even after that, Rabindranath, despite being a great friend of Gandhiji, publicly came out in support of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's brand of politics. He dedicated one of his very well-known books, a play called Tasher Desh, The Land of Cards. It is dedicated to Subhash Chandra in its new avatar. And in 1939, in the ceremony where the foundation stone for Mahajati Sadan was laid in Calcutta by Subhash Chandra Bose, Rabindranath recognized Subhash Chandra as the leader, I'm emphasizing the leader of the nation, not just the Bengali nation, but the Indian nation. So this is where I rest my, you know, ranting.
No, this was incredible, and thank you for going beyond what you had said. The amount of time you have. Can you take any more questions?
Okay, maybe
Or
one.
okay, yeah. Did Savarkar develop the concept of Hindutva separately or took inspiration from Bengali thinkers?
Right. So I'm sure that Savarkar was keeping track of what was going on in Bengal, and he had close connections with many of the Bengali revolutionaries
Yeah,
like Bhagat
yeah.
and Rashbihari Bose, of course. So I'm sure that as a very dynamic intellectual personality,
Hmm.
apart from being a dynamic revolutionary
Hmm.
himself, Savarkar was keeping a tab on what is going on in terms of thought development in Bengal.
Yeah.
But I have to point it out that there is a great similarity in what Savarkar is talking about in terms of Hindutva and what Rabindranath is talking about in terms of Hindutva.
Hmm.
Savarkar makes it very, very clear in his what is Hindutva, that Hindutva is not just the Hindu religion, that is, it is not just theology,
Hmm.
and also at the same time he points out that it is not just politics. So
Hmm.
it is a holistic entity
Yeah.
which has theological aspects, which has sociological aspects, which has psychological, moral, spiritual, religious, political, all sorts of aspects, and therefore it can be, utilized, it can be exercised, it can be practiced in different walks of life. This
Right.
is something that Rabindranath also talks about in his 7 essays that I just mentioned, throughout which the term Hindutva occurs and reoccurs.
I
That
see.
Hindutva is a holistic, integral whole.
Right. Sir, please, last one very important question. Dada, please ask him
Okay.
about Rabindranath's nationalism lecture, which is touted by leftists as a counter to Hindutva.
Right, this is a very important question indeed. So, nationalism, the bunch of essays
Hmm.
which is included in that book called
Hmm.
Nationalism by Rabindranath, had as its audience Americans and Europeans, mainly Americans, because it is something that came out of a lecture series, a
Okay.
lecture tour, in fact, that Rabindranath gave in the late
Hmm.
1910s, that is 1917, 1918, 1920, between this time, between these years. To Americans mainly. He also touches upon nationalism in Japan.
Hmm.
He also touches upon nationalism as a Western idea in general, not just American nationalism or European nationalism. He talks about
Oh.
nationalism in a Western
Hmm.
perspective,
Right.
and he points out the kind of grave injustices that are happening in terms of loss of life and property, and also the self destruction of the Western civilization. So, the main uh, points, the main targets of his criticism for nationalism, in this case, in this particular book, are nothing but Western civilization has taken a particular turn. That particular turn is being critiqued by Rabindranath, and
Oh,
he is also critiquing several imitations of Western nationalism, such as Japanese nationalism.
I see.
Okay,
Oh,
so this is not at all Indian
I
nationalism
see.
that Rabindranath is talking about. In fact,
Okay.
quite a few years before this, Rabindranath had written an essay called Nation Ki. Okay, and for that particular essay, it's a Bengali essay again, he had drawn upon the works of a French philosopher and theologian called Ernest Renan. Okay, and Ernest Renan had been addressing this question of what is nation in the context of Europe, but going much deeper in using a philosophical treatment. Rabindranath talks about this particular concept of Renan's nationalism and nationhood, and how that can be understood from an Indian perspective.
Hmm.
And in that particular essay, he beautifully explains what is nation and what is, the Indian concept of nationhood. Okay.
I see.
He also suggests that in India, because we do not have a direct translation for the word nation,
Hmm.
this word nation should be taken as it is, like we have taken
Oh.
many other European or English words,
Hmm.
like even chair.
Plain
You know,
table, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
So he goes on to explain that Indian nationhood, the character of Indian nation, lies in its peculiar psychology, which has
Hmm.
a close connection with its history, with its context of getting invaded again and again, and also resisting again and again, not only politically but through cultural tools, through cultural weapons. Rabindranath has time and again pointed out that the Indian nation never got dissolved, even during the years of Islamic invasion. He was always talking about how the Indian poets and Indian bhakts and saints, they were keeping the flame of Indian nationhood and the concept of Indian nation aflame,
Hmm.
a light, throughout these turbulent years. And if somebody wants to write a history of the Indian nation,
Hmm.
they will be doing a grave mistake to look only at the political developments and the political turmoil of the Mughal era, okay, or even the pre-Mughal Islamic era.
Hmm.
He says that the proper history of Indian nation can be found in the cultural developments that are happening, and that is the main front of resistance. He says that the political resistance is there. He recognizes it. He recognizes somebody like Rana Kumbha or Chhatrapati Shivaji or Guru Gobind,
Hmm.
for all of whom he has written flowing tributes
Yeah.
through his poetry.
Yeah.
But he still says that the main front of resistance was through culture and religion. So this is
Hmm.
something regarding which Binoy Sarkar actually disagrees with Rabindranath.
Oh,
Binoy
okay.
Sarkar says that India had been as political throughout its history as any European or East Asian nation. But Rabindranath is very clear in this regard, that the main front of Indian resistance to invasion and colonialism for the past 800 or even more number of years
I see.
was in the cultural and religious fronts.
I see. This seems to be completely virgin territory because no work seems to have been done on this front in the even in the recent years. Because then I think your book becomes very important because we now know that a lot of history has been hidden from us, etc. There were great Hindu kings. Now we come to know that there were great Bengali revolutionaries. There were great non-Bengali Marathi revolutionaries whom we have also not known about. Now we see that there were in fact great Bengali radical thinkers even who were not necessarily revolutionaries, but there has been no research on this topic.
Very much so, very much so. And in fact, as Professor Kaushik Gangobadhyay has pointed out, that Rabindranath Tagore has been made to be a sort of 19th century version of Kanhaiya Kumar.
Yeah, and this is very weird. Okay, then very much looking forward to your book and looking forward to separate episodes on all of these people with you, sir.
We'll be happy to do so. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Thank you. This was very enlightening. Thank you, sir. So good night.
Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Oh, this was incredible. Okay, lots of technical snags today. I don't know what's going on with my mic. I don't know what happened in the bit in the middle. The internet was perfectly fine. Okay, that was hilarious. I could perfectly hear him talking. He was hearing me talking. I could see him perfectly. No blurs. But my OBS was not delivering anything to the YouTube. Okay. So anyway, uh, let's just treat this episode as sort of a primer of this topic and all of these people. We need in-depth details of all these people separately in every podcast. There was very much to a lot to talk about anyway. Uh, let's see what's going on. Savarkar's book. Rabindranath. If Rabindranath was alive today, he would be called RSS 2. Yeah, of course. The stuff I have even discussed about Rabindranath, even that would be very much RSS 2G. Why Sreejit Datta's speaking thumbnail is totally different. Yeah, I don't know. He is growing more beard. Anyone who can grow a beard should grow a beard. I can't. Did Tagore believe that India was colonized by Mughals? It sounds like he believed in it. Yeah. Have you seen that quote I keep sharing from time to time? It's a quote from his Bengali essay, Bengali book called Japan Jatri, where he openly criticizes Aurangzeb for demolishing the Kashi Vishwanath temple, the Gyanvapi. We need a weekly series with Srijidda. Yes. Okay then, guys. Thank you. I apologize for the weird technical problems that I don't even know why they are happening as of yet.